and welcome to the Life Strategy Show that unlocks the secrets of living your best life. I'm your show host, Maxine Phillips, and today we have another phenomenal guest with us. Before we get started, I want you to understand, first of all, reach out, let someone know that you're watching the Life Strategy Show where we drop platinum nuggets, not golden nuggets, but platinum nuggets. And two, Life strategies is all about what have you put in place to get you where you are today. And that's what my special guest shares with us each week when they come on and they bring this information forth. Next is Level Less presents the Life Strategy Show. I'm the founder and I'm the CEO, but Level Less is all about success without levels. It's about knowing who you are. It's about knowing your worth, how to advocate for yourself, and how to continue to succeed on your own terms. So as you see sitting before us, we have Kenneth Cooper. Kenneth is here today to share with us information about a book that he wrote. I'm going to have Kenneth to come on, unmute yourself, Kenneth, so we can get this conversation started. How are you today?
I am wonderful, Maxine, and it is an honor and a pleasure to be here. And I hope you're doing great too.
I am. Listen, I love what I do and I do what I love. And so that's what I help individuals to understand and trust that they would do the same. So I ask you to be my special guest today because you have written a book. I had an opportunity to meet you probably about a year or two ago. And I remember the day that I was at Office Depot getting some printing done for the business as usual. And we started becoming engaged in a conversation. And I was so intrigued about what you shared with me that you were an author when I told you what I did from the business life and career coaching. You know, Kenneth, and when you shared that with me and you talked about the book and you even gave me a copy of the book, I have it right here, a copy of the book. And it's about do grocery stores grow food? And that intrigued me so because the book was written for your grandchildren. Your grandchildren. So I want you to start telling me a little bit about how have your life and the strategies that you put in place thus far have gotten you to where you are. So share a little bit about your background.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I grew up on a farm back in, I won't say what years, because that give away my age. But I grew up on a farm in the South. And like all other teenagers and at my age, we wanted to leave the farm. And our parents go to school, go to college, and get education. And so I left the farm and spent a little time in the military, worked for corporate 500 companies, started my own business. But then later in life, I was fixing breakfast one morning, and I know it had to come from above. Like, do people really know where food comes from? Did they really understand going to the grocery store and how food gets to them? And so that's when I started writing the book. And the question was, do grocery stores grow food? So then I used my grandsons. They were young teenagers at the time, but I implemented them was when they were smaller. And I used to keep them, and they would come over and I used to keep them. And they would always ask me questions. And they called me G-Pa. And they would say, G-Pa this, or G-Pa that, why is this, why is that? Inquisitive young minds.
Right.
And so I saw where I could use the book is fiction on nonfiction events.
Okay.
If you understand. And so one thing in the book, they ask questions. I won't give the book away, but they ask their mom and dad about things about farming, and so their parents, my children, couldn't actually answer the question. So then they say, well, let's call G-Pa because he knows everything. They actually said that one time when they were small. And so I just wanted to relate to young children about food, farming, where food comes from, healthy eating, and how it can affect your life. And growing up on the farm actually instill what made me the man I am today. Because you working with the earth, you're working with God's creation. It makes you appreciate more. At the time, I didn't really, because you're working hard. But I look back at it, and it makes me appreciate nature. It makes me create the work of God. Working with other farmers and just having a good time, even though it was hot and hard work. But you get a group of 4 or 5 teenage boys, and we just make a game out of it. Working out in the fields, we test one another, we contest, and we just have fun. So, in my life, I've been in corporate America. Well, not in corporate America, but working for corporations. And I started my own company, ran that for 15 years. So with small mom and pop companies, with state government, local government, even federal government. So I've experienced a lot of different things that I wanted to share with people.
Wow, this is awesome. Listen, you said a couple things in there. You talked about G-Paw. Your grandkids calling you that. I know my grandkids call me Nene.
Oh, yes.
So they always have that little nickname that they have for us, which we glow every time they say it, no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
So they have us wrapped around in their little finger. So, and two is the fact that because they're your grandchildren and you wrote about them in the book, it also lends itself to another thing that I believe in, and that's transforming generations and leaving legacies. And so as we're working with your grandkids and telling them about farming and talking about the earth, you're transferring that information to them. So your legacy will live on, and hopefully they will even start becoming a little bit, not necessarily farmers itself, but also grow some vegetables, because you do it right on your back porch if you want to. And so, and three, the fact that it was children that's involved, and the youth are our future,
Yes.
present and future. So we have to teach them now so they'll know how to continue to move forward in life. So ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, he's already dropped some platinum nuggets. So I trust you picked that up. And here, it's all about paying it forward. So don't just keep it to yourself, share it with other people. And so as we start talking about the book, do grocery stores grow food? And you mentioned something else about farming, which is phenomenal. And that's the way of, health. It helps us with our health, our mental health and our physical health and our emotional health, because the more we can grow our own food, the less pesticides or insecticides or preservatives and all of that is in the food. So give us a little glimpse about when you were coming up as a child, who helped you to understand how to start moving forward in life to help you put this strategy in place? Because, you talked about, you've written a book. So we're going to really talk about the book itself, but I want to know a little bit about your life strategies and what has helped you.
I would say I was blessed and fortunate enough to have a mom and father that really loved us. Back at that time, parents may not necessarily say they loved you like we do today, but they showed it by teaching. I worked with my father on the farm, and he showed me, I know this might sound chauvinistic or old-fashioned, but he showed me how to be a man. He showed me that a man does certain things. Not trying to be political correct or anything, but I was brought up that way. Now, my mother showed me how to be nurturing. And I would go with her to the garden, get out of school, come home from school, and she would say, okay, change your clothes, we're going to the garden. And I go to the garden and help her plant the peas, the beans, the cabbage and stuff. And then after I grew up, then she said, okay, change your clothes, come from school, and now we go pick the peas and the beans and the cabbage and stuff. So I work closely with both my mom and dad. And I look back at it and it's a blessing that they showed me life. I didn't really see it at that time. When you're a child, you're like, oh God, I got to go to the hot sun and do this. But we ate fresh vegetables. We had livestock, we had chicken, animals. So we had food. And that was natural to me, to have those things. and moving to the city, and I lived right outside of Washington, D.C. I've lived in the suburbs of Dallas, Texas, and seeing in the city where sometimes you don't have those conveniences. In the book, I talk about desert area, food deserts, and some call them apartheid food. But I took it for granted. So that's something that I look forward to working with areas. In the book, I talk about it, and I'll talk to different people that work and do those different things that help people in what we might call food deserts.
Wow, that's nice because food scarcity is so prevalent, and even with the children being out of school right now, we have some, areas that also have food available for these teenagers to come, for parents to come to, for college kids to come and get food even during the school year as well as during the summertime. So we definitely need places like what you're talking about. You also mentioned about farming, and I'm sure you saw that big grin run across my face when you started talking about going to the garden. Or I didn't have to end up helping plant the seeds. My brothers did that. I didn't have to worry about watering it, but I did have to worry about picking the weeds out of it. And then, like you say, once it's time to harvest, we had to help harvest it. And then I had to help my mother can it to get it ready for the winter. I mean, making preserves, making jellies, doing the green beans, greens, freezing them, putting them in jars and mason jars and boiling it, getting the temperature just right. So you're right. So when you grow up in that kind of environment, it's almost like self-survival. So when time comes that you need to refer back on that, you no longer look at packaged goods where you go into the store and purchase them, but you know how to prepare them in order for them to be preserved. So yeah. And the chickens, when you say chickens, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. It just gave me flashback because I remember going to the we call it chicken coop, right?
Yes.
Chicken coop, and you had to stick your hand underneath the hen if she was sitting there on the eggs, and they nice and warm, and you had to get the eggs. Sometimes they didn't like that, and other times they're like, okay, go ahead. I know why you're here. So they got used to it. So all of those flashbacks came to my remembrance when you were talking about it. It's just like I was back there as a little girl again. So it just goes to show that once you have that type of upbringing, or if you know how to do it, then you never lose it. Really, you never lose it. You might not use it right now, but you never lose it because it's like, okay, I can remember how my mom did all of that. So what would some advice that you would give some of if you were like a 17-year-old now versus, where you are right now, what advice would you give yourself?
To really pay attention to what my parents are telling me, to see nature. Just give this as an example. We just came through, well, it's still some around, but everyone remember 2020 when COVID hit.
Yes.
You remember going to the grocery store and the shelves were almost empty?
Empty, yes.
So if we know about how to grow our own food, you can if you have a decent sized backyard, then you can plant vegetables that can feed your family. Yes. I've done this living in the city. Okay, let's say you live in an apartment, but you have a balcony. You got flowers. Instead of having flowers, have a tomato plant, have a squash plant. So you can't feed entirely your family, but you can supplement.
Yes.
So those are the things that if I was 17, that I would pay more attention to. Because when I left the farm, I left the farm. But as you get older and hopefully you mature, as I did, you look back and see how necessary it is. I'm not holding anything against large corporations. However, sometimes the large corporation farms may not be, I'm trying to say this not to get in trouble, but I say local farms, which I work with. I work with local farmers.
Okay.
The community really enjoy it because they can go to the local farms and see the food and purchase the food. So farming is vital. I was at a fundraiser for a person running for office, and I asked a question. And then I ended like this. And there were probably 100 people there. And I said, if it wasn't for farmers, we all would die. It got so quiet, you could hear a pin drop. After the function was over, I had about 6 or 7 people to come to me and like, I understand what you're saying, or what can we do? I know it sounds drastic, but without farmers, we can have all the tech. Now we talk about AI, artificial intelligence, basically taking over. But if you don't have that oatmeal or orange juice or grits or eggs or whatever in the morning, it's not going to do you any good. And I remember watching the news one time that said that in the future, they're not going to be fighting over oil. They'll be fighting over water.
Mm. You know, it's amazing that you would say that, because back in 2000 and I would say 10 or 11, my body started rejecting. It started rejecting preservatives.
Okay.
Rejecting preservatives. I mean, after I left home and the farm, then you go to the city and you start eating what? Packaged goods.
Yes.
And the packaged goods has a lot of preservatives in it. And so therefore, at that stage in my life, my body just went to, it's like, no, I'm not accepting this any longer. And I couldn't figure out why I was getting so sick. And the doctors couldn't figure out why I was getting so sick. And so then it dropped into my spirit to start journaling everything that I ate. And journaling everything that I ate has really saved my life. Because other than that, I don't think I would be standing here today and talking to you, because that's just how sick I had gotten. And it got to the point that it was affecting my heart and it was affecting my brain. And a lot of times people don't understand that preservatives will affect so many different areas in the body, and it causes so many different illnesses. And so, but once I started journaling and narrowed down what was the culprit, then I started eliminating that from my diet. And then I started getting well. So the doctors couldn't help me because they thought I was allergic. I wasn't allergic to anything. I had a zero intolerance for preservatives. You know, and I'm still that way. Not as nearly as bad, because there's something else I discovered about 3 weeks ago that the doctors couldn't discover. You know, so it's like you have to be an advocate for your own health. You know, and you have to know your body better than the doctor. Now, I'm not going to say don't go to the doctor. That's not what I said. I said, you need to know your body better than the doctor. So when you share with the doctor what the diagnoses are that you see your body is going through, don't let them talk you out of it, because they're not inside your body. You are, and you have to make sure that you advocate for yourself. So you're so right as far as knowing how to plant those vegetables and using your balcony, you know, using pots, using trays, using buckets, and these vegetables will grow. And just think about it. You put a potato in your pantry or in the cabinet or whatever, and it's in the dark, and you've not done anything else to it. Next thing you know, it starts growing, you know, out of, you know, that little, what they call it, the root starts growing. Yeah. I had a sweet potato who did that. It's like, I think I need to cut that off and go and put these sweet potatoes in the oven and bake them, because other than that, they get ready to grow and multiply. So that just goes to show that all we have to do is pay attention and start working at work what we know how to do. And let's get away from all these packaged, pre-packaged preservatives, you know, because they're not going to tell you everything that's in every single item that's in the food that you're eating. It's not going to be there. But if you do have words there that you cannot pronounce, hello, Houston, we have a problem, right? And so I love the fact that do grocery stores grow food? So let's talk about this book a little bit. Tell me about it was Caleb and what was your other grandson?
Jalen. Caleb and Jalen.
Tell us a little bit about why you chose Caleb and Jalen as your main characters of the book.
Well, for one thing, and in the book also, it's not just talking about you know, farming and growing food, but I also wanted to show the relationship between a grandfather and his grandsons. That they, you know, first they go to their parents naturally. Right. But after their parents, and in the book, you know, they ask questions. The father's cutting the grass, so he's busy. The mom answers a few questions, but she's asked your father. And so when they say, well, let's call Jeepa, which they call me, and we talk, and I tell them I'm gonna take them to the farm. I have friends to this farm. So like I said, this is fiction on events and nonfiction because I have a lot of friends that are farmers and go there. So it shows most of it. It's three generations: myself, my son, and my grandsons. And we actually have that relationship in real life.
Beautiful.
The oldest one is 21 now. I don't know if can I talk about universities? Can I call the university name? He's in college now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah, he's a rising senior at North Carolina A&T State University, which is an alma mater in our family. Our whole family goes just about, and the youngest one just graduated from high school, and he'll be a freshman at UNCG, University of North Carolina, Greensboro.
Right.
But when they see me, they still run up to me, "Hey, T-Paw," and give a big hug, and I play with them. They play with me. I tell them that, I still can take you down. I can still, like we wrestling. They'll play wrestle with me, but we just playing because I know they could probably take me down.
Right, exactly.
But we still have that strong relationship. And that's something that I pray for, that all children can have a relationship with their parents and their grandparents, or at least an uncle or someone in their life, that the first mentors are your parents or your grandparents or an uncle or an aunt. And I just see sometimes where children grow up without anyone in their life, and it makes a difference. Like I said, it made a difference in my life. My mother nurturing, my father showing me how to do. I just give you this one example. It'll be very quick. We were on vacation. We came home, and the fence in our backyard had blown down because of a strong wind. We called a couple of places to have it replaced. They were kind of pricey. So I thought back to my farm days. I went to Lowe's, got some posts, got some cement, dug a hole, put the posts in the cement, nailed it back, saved several $100 because I had the skills that my father had when we would repair fences, to keep the animals in. So a lot of those things that you take for granted that you may have learned, but it comes back. Yes. It helped my pocketbook. I say it that way.
Exactly. And the thing about it is that was something that you learned and you had in, I call it your tool belt, and you were able to pull it out of the tool belt as needed once you evaluated the cost involved. Many times we try to do things for convenience, opposed to, wait a minute, and I love the fact that you said, take the time to be with the children and the grandchildren. That's another platinum nugget, because how are you going to leave legacies if you don't take the time and share with them what you've gone through, what you can do, show them how to do it? I had a grandson that someone says, well, go out there and change the flat tire. And he's looking at them like, okay. So, and I said to everybody, well, who taught him how to change a flat tire? Nobody had. So what makes you think he can go out there and change a flat tire? Nowadays you can do what? Look it up on the internet, how to change a flat tire, watch a YouTube. But back then we didn't have that. We taught them how to do these things that they know how to do now. So not everybody can also watch a video and learn from there. It depends on their learning style. So that's another thing that we do here at Levelers, is we help individuals to understand their learning style so they can take that information in and start using it immediately. So I like the fact that you said you took the time to be with your grandchildren, and I'm going to echo and say 100%. I agree with you. Kids need to have time for us to listen to them. We can still be taught by our younger generation. So don't think they don't know anything, because they really do if we just take the time and listen to them. So
you're so correct.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. So with this, the book, I love the fact that, again, the Grow Food, I love that because of food scarcity that we have right now today. So what else can you tell us about the book without giving a total book away? And then we also want to be able to know, how are we going to go out and purchase this book? And then, because I have my autographed copy, ladies and gentlemen, and you all need to get your autographed copy. It's a beautiful read. We're talking about, I think, 28 pages. And it's an excellent book to sit down and start reading to your younger children and then talk them through the book. So how can they purchase this book?
Well, my my website is down right now. I'm having to revamp, and you have to update things.
Right.
But my email address is BUSENSE bizsense100@gmail.com. Again, BUSENSE100@gmail.com. Contact me. And for volume for schools, I have sent I've sent them all across the country. I had a school I sent 100 to St. Louis. I've sent some to the Virgin Islands. Because people find out that people are really interested, and a lot of people, my generation, grew up on the farm. We left the farm. We went to college or we went in the military, but it's still in the back of our head, And another thing too is to expose the public to farming. Young children, my book is basically written for first grade to fourth grade to fifth grade, but I've had some junior high students read it and enjoy it. I've had teachers buy the book that teach elementary school, and they say they're going to use it as a book, a part of their curriculum.
Yes.
But to expose, I am president of a nonprofit organization that we work with farmers. And one of my positions is to expose the public to some of the problems that farmers have today, but some of the joys. I don't know if I talked to you since then, but I did a documentary that I've shown in Washington, D.C. to Congress people, to USDA. So my goal is to help people in any way that I can. Yeah. And since I have the farming background, my background also is in office equipment and electronics, but right now I'm working toward anything that I can do to help the small farmer and expose some of the things that they're going through, because some of the small farmers are really being pushed out to the larger corporations.
Wow. I love the fact, and I can hear it in your voice and I can see it on your face, and your heart is just oozing through, that you have the love for helping farmers. And I mentioned to you that I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Tenney, the Tenney Group, because and I want to say that because the Tenney Group, ladies and gentlemen, puts on a harvest ball in the fall. It's the November time frame, and it is geared around the Black farmers. And so I definitely want to make sure that the two of you all meet, because I think that's an excellent, some synergy right there in itself. You having a love for it, and he has a love for it as well. And I love the fact that you said that teachers are also purchasing the book. So teachers, this is a book that you can read. Parents, this is a book that you can read to your young children. Your young children then eventually start reading the book to you, and then they start telling you what they read. And it's always about the comprehension as well. And you also said that the book can be sent around the world. And the platform that we use here, Pod TV, we air and stream in over 200 countries. So we're on Roku, we're on Amazon Live, we're on Facebook Live, we're on Pod TV Live, we're on Spotify. So there's no limit to where this information can go. We want you to understand that you can reach out to Mr. Cooper, at the BUSENSE100@gmail.com and contact him and get your orders filled. Let him know how many books you need. Now is the time to do it. The kids are out for summer. Let's get them prepared for the fall. Let them start reading and let them start planting and getting their own gardens going. So I'm also, Mr. Cooper, you're available to come out and speak.
Yes, I am. I was just going to say that traveling up and down the East Coast, if it is within my capability Well, I'm based in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I'm just about any place in North Carolina, South Carolina, or Virginia. But if you, and not to put pressure on anyone, but if you order enough books, I'll go most any place to read to the children, and I interact. Uh, I'm a people person, so I interact. I did a church group one time. I guess there were maybe about 15 children there. And talking about, then I asked the children, how many love vegetables? I'm thinking out of 15, maybe 2 or 3. Do you know every one of them raised their hand? And I said, well, what kind of vegetable you like? And they named the vegetable. Some like peas, some like carrots. I'll never forget, one young man said he loved asparagus. And I said, asparagus? You like asparagus? He like, yes, sir. So children, sometimes we take for granted that they may not be knowing things, but if they are exposed, and remember, I used that word of exposing the public to farming. If they are exposed to things, then they can learn. And we, as the older generation, we need to expose in our experience and share our experience. That's something I wrote in the book, to share our experience. And the children will give back to us. Not, as you said, not saying that they may become farmers, but maybe they will have a garden of their own, or maybe they will go into research, or an extension of something, some way they're still affiliated with farming.
Yes.
Everyone, can't be, I didn't say can't be, but you might be a computer whiz, or you might be this or that. But there are some that can work with the farmers, may not necessarily get out in the hot sun, but it's something that you can do to help.
Well, the way I look at it from the levelist perspective, we work with adults. That mean adults in transition. That mean unemployed, underemployed, those who have not been promoted but should be promoted, those who are getting ready to retire, or those who've already retired and want to know what can they do after they retire. And then we work with students. So that's where our high school students and our college students come in at. And in working with them, Mr. Cooper, what we have found is that many of them are unsure of what career path they are to take. So one of the things that we pride ourselves in doing here at Levelist is to help them assess their everyday abilities and strengths so they know exactly what career match those abilities and strengths. And that way they do what they love and they love what they do. And they happen to be paid for it. So we definitely want them to be able to get a salary for it and live that lifestyle that they deserve. And that's where transforming generations and leaving legacies comes in at. Because when you help that child understand what path they're to take, they're on that right path the earliest possible in life, then they start living that life and they start sharing it with what? Their siblings or their parents or their children. So that's how we start leaving legacies. So I love what you said as far as all the things that you talked about and the fact that you are available to be around the world. And just because you can't travel, everything is digital now.
Yes.
So we can put it on Zoom, we can put it on, Teams, we can put it on Google. There's so many different ways that we can do digital, have a digital environment and a learning environment. So Mr. Cooper can come and read and talk to your students. And parents, we want you to become engaged as well, because it takes everybody playing their part in order to help these generations continue to blossom and become who they were created to be. So what would be your final strategy that you would like to leave today, Mr. Cooper?
Is I'm start with the adults. Think back when you were younger, whether you grew up on a farm or grew up in the city, and your zest for life and your inquisitive nature. Okay, now let's go to the younger children. They have that. And children want guidance. They may not know it, but they want guidance.
Right.
And they need guidance. And where you can work together. It's not the old against the young or the young against the old. It's working together. And that doesn't necessarily have to be in farming, but in anything. When we forget our youth, and our youth a lot of times fall by the wayside.
Yeah.
I always say this about inner cities, and there's so many vacant lots and vacant buildings. And I've talked to a few people in the USDA, not to say that it's happening, but some are doing this already. Grant money. Don't call me about grant money because I don't have anything to do with that. But there are monies out there where they can get seed and fertilizer and training to plant community gardens where they can have in their neighborhood. It's just a matter of asking someone or just inquiring different things. And there's one young lady that here in North Carolina, she's working with students, high school students. They come out to her farm and they show them how to grow. And you think that they're like, oh God, I don't want to do this. But they say the children are very excited about when they come out to the farm to actually see and get it. Oh, they pick a fresh strawberry off of the vine.
Oh, yes.
And eat it. I mean, you're talking about from the vine, you're talking about what, 5 seconds?
Right.
From the vine to your mouth instead of what, 5 days or 2 or 3 weeks. And so, and involve yourself.
That's awesome. And that is so true. Listen, you're giving me all kind of flashbacks. I remember those days we used to go pick strawberries. You know, when I grew up in West Virginia as a young lady, I didn't realize all the resources that we had at our fingertips. You know, my mother went to the store and had to purchase flour and all that kind of stuff, lemons and bananas and things that didn't grow in West Virginia. But our neighbors had all type of apples, you know, the red apples, the pear apples, the yellow apples, the green apples, the Granny Smith apples, as they say. Then we had one neighbor who had plums, one neighbor who had peaches. We had one neighbor who had grapes. And then there were the wild strawberries. And then one time my father literally planted an entire garden of strawberries. So we really had a great time with that. And so to have our own watermelons and things like, you just go to the garden and pick them and wash them off. And then sometimes you didn't even wash them off. You took a salt and pepper shaker with you to the garden so that you could eat the tomatoes and the cucumbers while you were out there picking the greens and all that other stuff you had to do. So we made fun out of it.
Yes.
But we were never hungry.
Yes.
Never hungry because we could always go to the garden and find something, you know, to eat. You know, even if our parents hadn't totally cooked for that day, but we had something to eat that we lived off of the land.
Yes.
You know, so, and it's like, it just makes me, you know, like, okay, I need to go and get some barrels and put on my back porch right now so I can start growing my own vegetables. Since I really can't go to the store and always purchase things, I go to a farmer's market where it's less likely to have pesticides and insecticides, because I know I have a low tolerance for chemicals when it comes to being on food. But yeah, that's another show, ladies and gentlemen, I'll come back and do on how I had to end up saving my own life through my Almighty, who gave me the insight on what I had to do in order to heal myself. That's basically what happened. So, Mr. Cooper, I want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for being here, so much for sharing your knowledge, so much for sharing your wisdom, and definitely for dropping the platinum nuggets that you have. So as we close, ladies and gentlemen, this ends our show for today. And as you know, I'm Maxine Pearl Phillips, your show host for the Life Strategy Show. And I never leave without saying, I believe in you and I trust you believe in yourself. So meet me back here, same time next week, same place. And don't forget, share your knowledge with others. Have a great day.
Thank you.